taking a critical look at the gaming news of the week. This is Augmented Reality, presented by the Triple S League.
What's up, everybody? Welcome to the Augmented Reality podcast for September 30th, 2020. This is your source for news, leaks, and insights about games and the gaming industry. Ash here with you as always. And we have, of course, Cyberpunk and Moontag, the rest of the Triple S League team. So welcome to you too. Welcome to everybody who is listening in the, or who is listening live and talking in the live chat. So, Scadril wants to know, Cyb, if you are excited for a certain special tonight.
I am. I just literally tweeted out at the place that's supposed to be airing it here to find out exactly how and when we watch this. I'm going to assume that it's going to be on in a few hours, and yeah, I'm really looking forward to this. I honestly, this is weird. When South Park first came out, I had no interest in watching it because I was like, ooh, foul-mouthed little boys. I deal with that almost every day. I have no desire to deal with this, in another aspect of my life. But as I've gotten older, especially as the story has turned to things like their superhero storyline and a bunch of other stuff, and more of their commentary on stuff, and some very wonderfully hilarious political stuff. And let's not kid around. Randy Marsh just basically makes the show right now, as far as like the entertainment value of it. Yeah, it's probably hands down, it's probably the funniest show that I can think of right now.
I haven't watched in a while, but I did watch a few seasons back a couple of years ago, and
they're not I was always genuinely perfect.
Entertained.
Like they are hit or miss.
Well, it's an impressive. It is hit or miss. It's impressive though because they make those episodes the week before they air. Like during the week before the show airs, they make the show. They make that week's episode. It's not like this 9-month process like producing an episode of The Simpsons. Like it's a 9-month process to make every Simpsons episode. South Park, they do everything in a week. And that's how they stay so ridiculously current, that they can have, they can talk about something that happened a few days ago in their show. Anyway, we got Moontag here as well. How are you doing? Are you? You probably weren't expecting
it's pretty
good. Moontag's
actually.
Moontag's been busy working.
Been kind of windy.
Sorry, I keep talking over you because of the audio delay. Sorry about that. Moontag's been working hard for us, creating a merch store, so we will be having that go live soon. We actually are going to have Triple S League and Triple S Legion merch, so stay tuned for that. We will, of course, announce and post links to that as soon as we can. All right.
I do have an announcement as far as that goes. If you guys have, excuse me, there's this thing called holidays. Some mass some mass event thing coming up here in a couple of months. Usually denotes the end of the lunar year. If stellar year, not lunar year. Apparently I'm crazy. If you're interested in a particular item or items with a particular tagline or piece of artwork that you might think is like, hey, you know what, I need like 5 of these things, please pop that into the Discord, and we will see what we can do to have something custom made that you can order on one of the sites that we're using. And because we can typically, not all the time, but we can typically on some of them, we can adjust the prices. We can adjust those prices pretty darn low. I mean, we don't make very much off of it, but this year has been kind of a crazy year. It's been kind of a hard year. If you guys have any ideas of like, hey, you know what, we need stylized socks because all of my relatives need stylized socks. If that's something, please let us know in the Discord. Pop in, let us know what you want, and we will try very hard to get that loaded up. We've been, like, Moon has been doing tremendous work on this front over the last few weeks to try and get this up and running, like, with a number of things. We're going to have a ton of stuff. We're going to have a ton of memes. We're going to have a ton of styles and arts and concepts, and it's going to be available on a ton of stuff. But if you have an idea, please let us know so that we can actually get it down, because the thing that would help us the most is if we can support you and at the same time get you something that you want for a decent price, and then that in turn helps us. That I think that's a scenario in which everybody wins, and we would really love to do that, especially because we know that for some people it's a little tight this year. It's been a rough year for some people. It's been all right for others. It really depends on there's this guy who makes masks that I know that, wow, he's making a ton of money right now. It's crazy. Like, he's made more money in the last 6 months than he's ever made in the entire industry for the past 10 years. So that's kind of crazy. Like, that's wicked. That's wicked crazy.
By the way, congratulations on the most belabored way to describe Christmas I have ever heard. So yes. And I just spilled my coffee. We're off to a great start here on this live show. The hazards of doing a live show. Let's just get into the news. By the way, slam the like button. Please ignore everything that's come before this, and just slam that like button. It likes it rough, and tells YouTube that you appreciate this content. All right, on to the gaming news. So Cyberpunk and CD Projekt Red there's a lot of buzz about them right now because of a recent announcement, and there's been a lot of opinions flying around about this. And I have to say, I'm a little jealous of the rest of the members of the Cyberpunk 2077 community podcast, including you, Neon. I see you in the chat. All of them, Last Known Meal, Mad Queen, and the Neon Arcade, this very day received a great honor in that they were all blocked on Twitter by Jason Schreier.
Amazing.
Me,
truly,
us, the Triple S
amazing.
League, we're still trucking. I can still see Jason's tweets. But if you're curious about what this has to do with CD Projekt Red, Jason Schreier released a report about how CD Projekt Red has essentially, for these last few weeks of development of Cyberpunk 2077, they are expecting 6-day work weeks of their staff. And Adam Badowski acknowledges that this essentially is in opposition to what he's previously said about crunch and the approach they want to take. So I guess he's acknowledging that it's crunch when he says, starting today, the entire development studio is in overdrive, which, according to him, means your typical amount of work and 1 day of the weekend. The extra work is paid, of course, and they're also there's some other compensation we'll talk about later, but he continued saying, I take it upon myself to receive the full backlash for the decision. I know this is in direct opposition to what we've said about crunch. It's also in direct opposition to what I personally grew to believe a while back, that crunch should never be the answer, but we've extended all other possible means of navigating the situation. So that's the situation we're in. CD Projekt Red is in crunch mode. Lots of opinions about this. I'm expecting to see lots of opinions in the live chat, which has stopped moving. So I'm not sure if it's no one's talking or if my website window has bugged out. But in any case, yeah. Your thoughts, Saib?
So...
Oh, as important context. Sorry, I should include this. Last year, Schreier did sort of an investigative report, which we critiqued rather harshly because it was very biased. But
it was...
yeah. Where he...
I normally mute when I cough, of course. I apologize.
He was saying a word through that cough. He sat down with Iwinski and Adam Badowski, so that's the studio head and the director of Cyberpunk 2077, to talk about work conditions at their studio, and this happened in the wake of him publishing a different report in which he supposedly spoke to a few employees who said the crunch situation is really bad at the studio, and a lot of that was questionable, but he did sit down with Iwinski and Badowski and basically got them to put out their position on crunch, and got got a verbal commitment from them that they weren't going to institute mandatory crunch. Well, that apparently they've gone back on that. So mandatory crunch is taking place now. I think we're going to try to look at all sides of this issue. I'm not happy about it that they've gone into crunch mode. I'm not happy about it that they've gone back on what they said. That said, it seems to be a reasonable amount of overtime. And a lot of people are saying, oh, this is to be expected. But of course, it is muddied by the fact that they said we're not going to do this, and we won't expect our employees to work beyond their own normal time and interfere with family time and that kind of a thing. So anyway, Saib, I'll let you take it from here.
So I need to preface this with I don't like it when anybody's forced to work overtime. I think everybody should have a reasonable job with reasonable salary, with reasonable time off, with reasonable everything should be reasonable. And I do think that that there's a lot of restructuring that should go on, not to the level that some crazy moronic people who think that fairies can grant wishes can do. There's certain things that just don't happen without trial and difficulty, without stress. I mean, I know people who don't function without stress. They have to have that stress level in order to turn on certain things in the brain to make them work to the level that they need to. There's multiple examples of this that I can give, and I'm sure there's multiple examples that many people can kind of attest to in their own life, in their own way of really getting down, doing the hard work. I know people who will literally break their back just to point in somebody's face and say, "Ha! I did this. You can go wash a boot," and they are really, really motivated by that ability to tell somebody off. To say, "I did this when you didn't believe that I could," go do whatever you want, and how dare you? That kind of thing. This is a very normalized thing, in all honesty. So I get that. I really do. I understand that some people don't like the way that works. I'm not saying everybody needs to work that way, but I am saying that there's a lot of people who do function better when they're offered or put into the position of no, you gotta burn rubber here. And there's some ways that you only burn rubber by doing said thing. Again, not for everybody. So let's preference it with those two things of stating that yes, I believe honestly that I think stock options should be mandatory. I really do. I think stock options should absolutely be mandatory for pretty much every company in some way, shape, or form. Period. I think that's a completely reasonable thing to expect. I certainly think that it's either that or bonuses that you negotiate or something like that. I understand there's some jobs that don't really pay that well, but I was talking with somebody, some random worker in a job that most people don't even know about, right? And they certainly wouldn't pick if they knew about it. And I'm like, "Hey, dude, how much do you make a year?" And he's like, 150 grand. So I was like, "What? What?" He's like, "Well, nobody wants to do what I do. Everybody hates it. Everybody thinks it's gross. Nobody wants to touch it." I'm like, 150 grand? Yeah, easy. And it's not that hard. And he had his dog with him and everything. I was like, "Yeah, I work at the pace that I want to, and I do the work, and it's 150 grand." And I'm like, "Holy crap, that's for what he was doing, I did not expect that. I was expecting a lot less than that." This is a job that I think a lot of people would look at and say, no, this is just entry level. So it is always surprising, and work is always kind of weird. And I do have a work story that I can hopefully tell on the way out today because it's really, really funny. But overall, I've got to say that for people who think that that AAA games can be made without crunch when they are announced games, like games that are announced before they're done, you're kidding yourself. And I don't know why anybody would ever think that this is a possibility. I've never seen a company be able to pull this off before. Oh yeah, we're going to not we're going to announce the game 2-3 years before it's puts out. We're going to tell people that it's going to be ready roughly about this time, and we're somehow going to manage to get a half dozen to 3 dozen departments to to put out their major patches in the same month at the same time with absolutely no issues or problems. You're absolutely kidding yourself. I've never seen this done. The only thing that you can do typically is don't announce your game. Do not announce your game until it's ready, and then announce your game, and then start working on DLC. I don't know if you know, but this is not done almost ever at all.
Nope.
Frankly put, the closest people to do it is Todd Howard and the Bethesda Maryland studio, because not every department in Bethesda has done this in the past. Many games were announced a year or more ahead of time. People knew that it was coming. It was expected for a particular release window, and that was it. And that was done. And that was it. And you never, ever see anybody else doing this. Why don't people do this? Well, the biggest reason why they don't do this is because of the immense amount of cost that you run into, and also the window of technology that closes on you. Not just technology, but just general hype. If you're building and working on a game, and trust me, this has been done by others too. Now, again, not necessarily what I would call a AAA, but this has been done in single A and double A scenarios here or there, where they don't announce a game until very, very close to release, until it's basically all done. But because there's been no hype and no build-up for it, the game is totally missed out on. People just totally don't, they don't know about it, they pass over it, they don't realize it's there, and the next thing you know, that genre has fallen out of favor, and you've lost your window, and you've got to lay everybody off.
Yeah, you basically have to be a Bethesda with a game like Fallout 4 in order for that to work.
Mm-hmm.
To get that kind of hype rolling in 5 months, a 5-month window between announcement and release. That wouldn't work with Cyberpunk, because nobody knew what Cyberpunk was before this came,
And so there's a lot of situations in which this is like, I'm sorry, it just doesn't work, guys. It just doesn't. If you think it does, you just don't know how the marketing departments work. Now, I'm talking in general, and again, mostly for industry people, not necessarily. I'm not telling regular Joes and people who are gaming fans who don't understand how the marketing of something works. When you're pushing a product out to, especially consoles, they have a marketing team that wants to pour over that concept for months and months and months, possibly years. If you are owned by a public company, or if you're owned by shareholders, which CDPR is, they want quarterly, if not bi-quarterly reports detailing in detail what you're doing, so that they know that their money is safe with you. You will find it very hard pressed to hire somebody who's saying, "Yeah, you know what? I think this is going to happen here, but I just don't know if this is going to happen here, and we should probably just not. I'm not going to tell you guys anything, because we're working on something, and it's going to be great, and you're going to love it." You have to have, investors like that simply just don't exist. Like there's a handful of them that do, but they just don't exist. And you're not going to find that kind of investor who's willing to do that. You can't even find that amongst people who sponsor said games. The closest example I think we could probably do is like Star Citizen, where a bunch of people aren't expecting an update from that, and look how that's gone. But again, that thing has been scrutinized very publicly, so it kind of defeats it defeats the kind of the purpose of what we're talking about here. So can it be done? I honestly, I don't think so. And why he would promise this to begin with, It's kind of weird
I think
why he would do that.
that's the real kicker here. I don't think this would be as big of an issue if
Mm-hmm.
if Badowski and Nowitzki hadn't made these promises prior and
Mm-hmm.
made such a statement about crunch and how they're going to intend to avoid crunch and not make crunch mandatory. Not that there wouldn't be crunch. I do want to clarify that. He didn't promise there wouldn't be crunch, but he promised no mandatory crunch. But now they are implementing a mandatory crunch. Which
Yeah.
basically, if we're talking about crunch, I mean, crunch can mean a lot of different things, though. And it's a hot button topic because of how much how it's being done very poorly by some studios. If you're basically, it gets to the point where it's compared to slave labor and abuse, basically, just saying, forcing your employees to work 16 hours a day, 7 days a week for years and not paying them. That's kind of what people are not paying them overtime is what some people envision when they think about crunch. And it can be that, and there are some studios who have gotten close to that and really, I mean, Naughty Dog was I think there were other issues there, but Naughty Dog recently burned through a whole bunch of its employees because of really, really bad crunch. But crunch can be on the other end of it, on the more reasonable end of the spectrum. It means required overtime, which happens in a lot of industries. So you have to look at it in a case by case basis. And so in this case, it doesn't. There's no mention of having to work more hours in a day. I don't know what their daily work day looks like, but instead of 5 days a week, they have to work 6 days a week. This is paid overtime. Also, in a post on Twitter on Wednesday, that's today, but so Schreier updated his article today, explaining that Badowski had said that CD Projekt employees can continue to count on bonus payouts amounting to 10% of the company's annual profit, which, when you think about how profitable CD Projekt's been recently, that could be a substantial bonus.
Mm-hmm.
So, actually, I've got the tweet here. He says, like in recent years, 10% of the annual profit our company generates in 2020 will be split directly among the team. So 10% of the profit, they split that by the number of employees, and I don't know if it's, if it's weighted by position or what, or if they just split it evenly, but there's about 1,000 employees. So you take 10% of their 2020 profit, split it by 1,000. That's roughly what each employee is going to get as a bonus, which could be a substantial amount of money.
Yeah, and I mean this is what I was talking about how having a bonus or a buy-in or stock option. This means that and especially the pure profit splitting. This is one of the biggest things that I like about companies, because there's a chart that used to say that 80% of the work that a big corporation does doesn't make them any money. And so when you say, "Oh yes, we need to work off of a pure profit sense of like your bonus is tied to how much money you make the company," not everybody who works at the company will ever make the company money. Janitors don't typically make a dealership money. It's not typically how they work. And that janitorial position is mandatory. Like you have to have it, otherwise your place is going to stink. So in that case, yes, they do, but there's no direct tie from one to the other, right? And that's what I'm saying is like it's like yes, that is a significant difficulty that unfortunately I there's a lot of companies who there's no way you can create an answer for that and say, oh well, the solution is to do this. The solution is to just do a yearly bonus and split it evenly amongst the staff. That's one of the best ways to do it, and that's what they're doing here. And I do like the idea of individual bonuses because it rewards individual effort. But here, if this game becomes the biggest game, period, and they make an enormous amount, and they ship 100 million units, all of these people I mean, they're going to have a house, they're going to have enough money to go on a substantial vacation for a couple of months. Like anything and everything is going to be just available to them. And yes, congratulations. this is a good thing. This is something that is beneficial to pretty much everybody if you can do it right. And I sincerely hope that they do. Like, I really, really do hope that they do manage to do this right, because it's worth it, and it's a good thing to do that. Now, as far as the question of like, how this goes, again, I don't think that you can make a game without crunch, because a few days beforehand, or a few months before your release, you're 2 months out, maybe a month out, and you're putting your final build together, and it breaks your game completely, and you can't find the solution for it. Your problem is then, well, do you delay it for a couple of weeks, or like, what do you do? What do you do in that scenario? Something big has broken, and it may not be anybody's direct fault. So what do you do? And that's the question that I think that is the main reason why you will never, ever, 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 ever be able to say yes, 100%. We could just fix this by just snapping our fingers, and no, that's la la land. That doesn't work. Period. So unfortunately, this means crunch, and unfortunately, this means work, and unfortunately, this means no scenario that I can think of can guarantee that you will never ever have to resort to crunch, period. You can say, oh yes, we're testing a new system, and oh yes, we're doing this, and oh yes, we're doing that. There's no guarantee that that's ever going to work. And again, I hate to say it because it sounds so rude, but if you're in a job that is based off of immense amount of short-term work, that's the job that you signed up for, and and at some point you have to be ready to say, yeah, this is my job, and this is what it takes, but I'm also going to make more of a bonus this year than most people will ever make, in some cases, as far as a pure bonus for yearly wages go. So
all right, so yeah, different angles to look at this from. By the way, yes, there is something wrong with the live chat. Now, just a moment ago, the dam broke on the live chat, and about 100 messages poured through. So I did see them, and then I refreshed my browser to make sure it was completely fixed. All those messages are gone again, so I can't read them. But we do have a super chat here from Ren Sten, who says, and thank you very much for that, by the way. Ren Sten says, take Jason with a grain of salt. He seems to be hunting for a story on CDPR. I agree. He's already. I want to get to this. He's already putting a spin on things on Twitter. The super chat goes on. Mad Queen and Last Node Meal have already done videos 8 months ago and today, respectively. Yes.
Well, we did a video on this topic well over 2 years ago, when the Mad Queen and us worked together very closely on a project where we spoke with and developed contacts at the studio, directly asking them about this. And we only found 2 people that were actually upset at the studio. Everybody else said, look, this is the name of the game. This is the work. If I go to work for another IT company, or if I go to work for a technology, invention, or where they work on like baseline stuff, so there's no artistry there. It's just work, but it's work that they make, and it's work that they get, and that's something that they feel is worth it. They work on that. They work those. There's weeks where they're going to get a call and say, hey, you have to show up and you have to work here, and you've got to fix this problem. I've got a client who's really, really mad, and you've got to pull 48 hours and get this fixed before Monday morning. That happens in those kinds of same jobs. And they're like, if I wanted to do that, I would do that. And I would face the same situation, and I wouldn't get nearly as much of a bonus when it comes to the end of the project, like I do with CDPR. And they made that quite clear, that CDPR pays out more of a bonus than they would have made in 2 or 3 other industries doing the same level of work. So they made that quite clear. So as far as Jason's article goes, now I want to get into directly, now that I've kind of addressed the problem of the main problem, I want to get into where he's coming from. Does Jason have it out for CDPR? Pretty much every journalist does. Pretty much every journalist is out hunting for a story. They have been hunting for a story. We exposed how some of their stories are oddly connected with personal and private interests. If they can bring down said company, if they can hurt said company, we've done that in the past. Take that with a grain of salt if you so choose, and take this with the same grain of salt if you so choose. I can guarantee you that there's a lot of companies out there that want to see CDPR suffer. And they want to do this for everything from ideological reasons to financial reasons to just making a big thing crash and burn so that they can make the hate clicks. So that they can farm those precious, precious, precious monetary clicks for advertising and revenue and stuff like that. That's just the way that a lot of this industry has worked and changed. If you want to know why, life is so messed up and why we have so many difficulties with everything that's been going on, and why some, why is it that, seems to be that hate is running the world right now. Where did this start? Well, it started with people when they realized that they could get paid for hate, that they could make money for hate. And as soon as they realized that, that's when you could see a clear and decisive drop, starting around 2008. But when people realized that they could farm hatred and make money off of it, that's when you saw this incredible growing thing. Am I saying that's what Jason is after here? I wouldn't put it past him. I'm not going to say for sure yes or for sure no. I wouldn't put it past him. He's going to make money. He's already left a dying company to go work at another company that's close to dying as well, in an industry that's really dying, in an industry where if you don't have for 6 months, if you don't have a massive story that breaks headlines and makes people's heads turn, you're fired. If you don't do that on a weekly basis, or not a weekly basis, if you don't do that at least once every month, you're fired, because you're not bringing anything to the table for these companies. And these companies they've done it to themselves, partially because they never learned how to grow with the times, which is funny because they replaced other companies that failed to do that. And then they sat there and said, well, gee, you should have learned how to grow with the time, my friend. Yes, exactly. Sitting on their desk, oak desk in the middle of a 100-floor story office building on the 100th floor, sipping on a whiskey with a big cigar sticking out of their mouth. Well, son, you should have learned how to play the game, man. Play the game, you're going to play the game. I've heard and seen people do that. Say that to former industries. One of the funniest was when movies, this is a quick side note. Movies back in the day were silent. They started out as silent films, then they moved to predominantly audio over the radio, and then they merged the two and had movies that had both sound and audio. And there was a bunch of audio actors who were ruling the top of the entertainment world, who were mocking the people from the old film, the silent film era, saying, well, they just couldn't cut it. They didn't have the voice, man. You got to have the voice. You got to have this great speaking voice. And you gotta be able to speak to the masses. And they couldn't do that. Then, man, look at those suckers. And 20 years later, they were replaced by television. It's so funny how this stuff goes. And then the people that got into television, all this time later, it's been replaced by the internet. And you are constantly being replaced. And if you can't do the, oh dear, I missed the word. If you can't do the shuffle, I think it was the Chicago shuffle or whatever it's called. If you can't do the shuffle, you're out of the game. So I think this is, again, I don't want to put words in his mouth. I don't want to say that Jason is farming hate clicks because he's in a dying industry and he doesn't know what to do and he's got to come up with stories. And this just happens to be a really good story that he knows will sell clicks. I'm not going to say directly that I think that's what he's doing and he's doing that intentionally, but I wouldn't put it past.
Fair enough. He he put out a tweet today though, saying he wanted to correct some misinformation that he's seen floating around, and he gave 2 numbered points in this tweet. He said, point number 1, some devs on Cyberpunk 2077 have been crunching on and off for years, at least since the E3 2018 demo. Okay. Point number 2. This is where I'm starting to feel like Cyb might be onto something here, because his second point in this tweet is crunch doesn't refer to a few weeks of overtime, it's a culture. And then he links to a new article that he wrote, which I can't read because I've used up my free you've used up my free article on his website. So anyway, the title of it, I can see the title of it here because I can see the preview.
The fact that he works for Bloomberg of all things to be lecturing people on, you really shouldn't do that. It's just not a good way to stand your ground. You gotta have integrity. Over here at Bloomberg, we have lots of integrity. I mean, the amount of people that we've bought out, from politicians to everything else. I mean, you just gotta have integrity, son.
But look at this framing, though. The article is titled "In the World of Video Game Development, Chronic Overtime is Endemic," and he's tying this to Cyberpunk. He's tying this to CD Projekt, and he's doing a bait and switch on the crunch of required overtime with a crunch like the culture of crunch, and conflating the two. That's where it gets disgusting. And that's where. So I replied to him today, and then I thought I might get banned for this. I didn't, but I replied.
No, not yet.
Are you implying that CDPR is imposing a culture on their staff? I'm not happy about them going back on the no crunch promise either, but please stop with the biased framing. I actually like your reporting when you stick to the facts. I guess that was too nice to get a ban. That's what Neon told me.
It was definitely too nice.
But anyway, that's disgusting, Jason. Like, come on. You actually put out a semi-factual article, and then you do this kind of slimy spin to get more clicks. Like, that's that's disgusting. All right. I really hate that we missed so many chat messages because I had skimmed them, and there were some really good ones. I know Terror K said something to the effect of the hatred for crunch is being overblown by the media, and it like happens in every industry. I mean, that's very true. You know where I doubt that it happens is in the journalism industry.
Oh,
maybe
yeah,
that has something.
There's never any crunch that happens in the journalism industry. You know what other industry that this surprisingly I can tie to with this is the cooking industry, is the chef industry. I worked as a chef for a very long time. It was one of my first jobs.
Maybe we can maybe you could tell this story later because we got to move on.
Okay, fine.
We're getting low on time here, and we still have to talk about Starfield, and I got a couple other Cyberpunk things. But I do want to say we love seeing everybody so active in the live chat. Sorry that we can't see many of your messages. Like, it spat out a few more messages at me, but now it's stopped again. So I don't know what's going on there, but we're glad so many of you are listening live anyway. If you do want to engage in conversation, you can head over to our Discord server. You can find the link to that in the description below. We welcome you to join the community. It's a place where you can chat with us and other Triple S community members, the Triple S Legion, about all the things we love to talk about. Stay up to date about everything we're doing here at the Triple S League. Also, keep your eye open for updates there about our upcoming merch store and our new music channel. We're going to be pushing that pretty soon. We've got some of you already know about it, but we're going to do a bigger push when we release a couple of Cyberpunk music mixes. So we figure you should all enjoy that. So click the link below to join. Be sure to say hi to us in the welcome channel. All right. So, yeah, just a couple. I'll just quickly touch on this because we've spent a lot of time already on Cyberpunk, but Cyberpunk 2077 was featured at the Tokyo Game Show 2020, and they showed mostly stuff that we've already seen, but a very enterprising content creator went and did a side-by-side comparison of 2018 footage with 2020 footage, and I just wanted to share some of that with you here. So the new Japanese, or the not the Japanese version, they did play it in Japanese, but the version that was shown in Japan is on the left, and the previous version that we've already seen is on the right in this screenshot. So you can see some fairly significant differences there in the lighting. Some difference in the design of the scene. It's interesting. Like if you watch the video version of this, the animations are pretty much exactly the same, but you can see the lighting is a lot different. And then here's another example right here. So yeah, definitely different. And
yeah, we had a really deep dive on this on the community podcast on Sunday.
Yeah, you can check that out. That was on
Last Known
Meals channel. So if you want to,
we had a huge deep dive into this, what this means for stuff going forward, some of the major areas of upgrade and work that they've done on the game, and what it means for the future, and what it means for release, and basically means that they've really polished things over and over and over and over again, and they've really improved things over and over and over again. And now we're seeing we're starting to see some of that like come to fruition now. So we can see that they've improved some of the way that animations are handled. They've really refined their animations. Anything that they found was jarring, they've gone through and they've fixed it. So yeah, this is very, very, very solid overall.
all right. While we're looking at screenshots, I'm going to bring up this picture here. So this is allegedly a leaked screenshot from a 2018 build of Starfield.
I don't think we're supposed to show the screenshot.
Are we not supposed to?
No, we're not.
Well, okay. I've got it on the image today. Nobody told me that, but anyway, this it's up now. So
yeah, we'll pull it down.
It's not going to make a difference if it's already in the video. It's in the video. It's on the thumbnail. So some images of Starfield have leaked and are apparently images of a 2018 build, so a couple of years ago. So yeah, can't show the screenshots. So what can we say about this though? They're obviously, they take place in what looks like a test level.
They're definitely done in a test level with testing level content. You can tell that, like, at first we were like, this looks like it could just be a really, really, really good mod for Fallout, or probably Fallout 4 or something like that. And there's clearly they're clearly working on some stuff here and there and there and here and all that kind of stuff. And what I've started to see from pretty much everybody is that we can now basically confirm that this is definitely the game, and this is 2 to 3 year old content. So this is huge. This is very, very, very interesting, because it means that they're a lot further along than a lot of people have suspected that they are. We can tell that they're using new lighting systems, new animation. We can tell a couple of things, and this is 2 to 3 year old content that they're showcasing.
So how do we tell all that from this? Because the images do look like they look pretty flat. Like the lighting's not fully implemented. The textures.
Yeah, no, the lighting and the textures are for sure things that have probably been replaced at this point. But it's that lighting and textures that we know that's baseline, like Bethesda content. So yeah, that's baseline stuff. And then there is the way that the NPCs are standing is a standard animation that's found in Fallout and some other stuff. Which again, if you're building a game, you're using older systems and you're replacing those systems as you go. so that technology is slowly being replaced piece by piece by piece by piece. It is not something that's being replaced all at once. Um, your animation engine, especially your animation engine, it might have old animations in. This is something that Baldur's Gate 3 had. There was a lot of content. There was a lot of technological and visual assets, just assets in general, I guess you could say. There were a ton of assets from Divinity Original Sin 2, an enormous amount of assets from Divinity Original Sin 2. And that content has been completely ripped out now. When it was first shown, there was a lot of that you could identify and say, "Oh, look, they're using DOA assets, and why are they using DOA assets instead of building their own assets? They should build their own assets." Blah 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 blah. And yeah, totally agree. But this is something that basically like it's an ongoing process. So of course this stuff has changed out over time. It could be that stuff was replaced in late 2018, and it's only now that we're seeing the pictures of it, right now. But for the most part, it's been completely overhauled and has been for a while. So there's a bunch of stuff with that. There's also the way that some of the buildings were lined up. They were lined up in a mathematical way that was, again, it was exactly the same as Fallout 4, very very similar, obviously completely different structure, but the settlement system, or what was the settlement system in Fallout 4, has definitely been copied over essentially and altered and put in here to fix things up and to make them better, and to overhaul them completely. So yeah, that's just one of the several ways that we can tell that this is definitely it. There's also the silence from certain people and the quiet, not, how when girls get into a room and they're not supposed to talk to each other about a thing because it's supposed to be a secret, and they just like look at each other, and there's like some Moon, about this, where it's like you guys have like this way of communicating that's not verbal, uh, um and confuses men immensely, and you can have an entire conversation that has absolutely no spoken words in it whatsoever.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
It's called body language.
Yeah. So yeah, there's a lot of that going on when people are talking to the contacts and saying, "Hey, is this what we're looking at? Are we seeing that?" And then there's a bunch of little things like the font. The font was used is Bethesda owned font, and some other stuff. So yeah, um, they haven't been confirmed. A couple of them haven't been taken down yet, so there is that. And we're hoping that the takedowns don't get us now. That would be that would be
Have
that
some
would
have
be
some actually
great.
been taken down? Because
Uh,
I found them on I found them just up on Reddit and Twitter and everything, so it seemed fine.
Nothing's been taken down directly yet, but it could be because again we know that this is coming from a source, the same source, who's leaking this stuff one at a time, and it could be that he or she only had four screenshots in grand total, and they leaked the three because one of the screenshots wasn't great. It was just a not much. It was a little tiny bit of the UI. And again, a lot of this stuff has most likely changed. Probably an enormous amount, if not all of this stuff, has been greatly improved and altered. And judging from what we have here on the early spectrum, I think what we can see is that they've been making really good progress on this, and where this exactly ends, we don't quite know yet because we still don't know the premise of the game. We know that it's a space game that has some feature or connection to either like outposts or like space stations. We know that that's one aspect of it. Where we go from there, like where else we go from there, we don't quite rightly know yet. Nobody really does. So yeah, this is it is definitely, I would say this is looking up, to be frank. I think this is really really looking up, and I think the likelihood that we're going to see something really cool come out of this game, I think is growing every day. And as we're finding out more and more and more of the stuff that's come out of Bethesda in the last couple of months, over the last couple of years of processing and working and finding out exactly what's been going on with things behind the scenes, we're discovering that things are not as what some people assume them to be. And there is quite possibly a lot of stuff going on in the background that that will surprise many people. So yeah, it's interesting.
All right.
We're gonna see some really interesting stuff.
I'm definitely very curious to see more about this game, especially with the Microsoft buyout of Bethesda. Very curious to see what's going to happen going forward, and I hope things improve. All right. Final story today. There was one other thing. I'm not sure if we'll have time for it, but there is a... there's... Actually, I'll just quickly mention. So Epic Games in its battle against Apple has some help now. they've made a club. They've made a we want to demand fairness from Apple Club, and it's called the Fairness or the App Fairness Coalition or something to that effect. I actually don't have the info right in front of me on that one. It's because I didn't think we'd actually end up talking about it, but I just wanted to mention it, that it's an interesting update in this conflict between Apple and Epic, that Epic has is gathering some other companies around it, and one of those is Spotify. So a lot of companies not happy with the way Apple does things. So there's going to be some interesting news on that in the future, I'm sure. But more directly relevant to gaming, Amazon is launching its own cloud gaming service as a competitor to Google Stadia and Microsoft xCloud, and to some extent NVIDIA the NVIDIA one. And it's really interesting that all of these companies are approaching things very, very differently. You know, you've got Google Stadia, which is just insane. I mean, I don't understand. So you subscribe to the service, and you buy games to put on it, and it's like you buy a console and buy games for it, except the console is a streaming service that doesn't get anywhere near the performance they promised. Then you got Microsoft xCloud, which is kind of an add-on to their Game Pass. So, you know, you subscribe to get all these games, and then, you know, you can download them and install them on your machine, but you can stream them also if you want. It's kind of an add-on service. And then there's the NVIDIA one, which basically accesses your Steam library, and you can play the game on their hardware and stream it to your machine. So that's kind of interesting. And then there's this one, Amazon Luna. And they're approaching this in its own interesting way. So it is a subscription service, and they're doing a model similar to what they're doing with Amazon Video, in that you subscribe to a base service. It's in early access now. Introductory price is $5.99 per month, so I don't know what the final cost of that is going to end up being. But then you essentially can subscribe to game channels or game packages, basically. Kind of like you would subscribe to cable packages back in the day when people actually had cable, or like it works on Amazon right now. Like you subscribe to Amazon, you know, or Prime Video is what it's actually called. So, you know, you open your Prime Video app, there's a set of movies and shows and things that are just included with your Amazon Prime subscription. Then there's some other ones that are not available unless you subscribe to an add-on service. So that's kind of how it's going to be happening with Amazon's Luna service, where I guess you'll get a certain set of games with your base subscription, but then you can add on to, you know, you can add more games on top of that. And, so it may be tied to different developers. They've partnered with Ubisoft. And, for example, so you might have to pay an additional subscription fee to get access to all the Ubisoft titles. That kind of a thing. Makes more sense than what Stadia is doing, if you ask me. What do you guys think? Cyb, Luna, anyone in the chat?
Yeah, it's a little bit better than the Stadia attempt. So that's interesting.
Yeah, it is still limited to online streaming, and we've yet to see if it's going to have some of the pitfalls that Stadia has. Basically, just not being able to deliver what they promised. And you were telling me earlier, Cyb, you're amazed that they haven't been sued for that, because for false advertising or something, because they just did not deliver.
No, there was a bunch of things that they basically lied about, knew that they lied about, and again, somehow, like, I know that there were some cases that were started against them, but there was some stuff that was just, it was just downright rotten. Like, some of the promises, some of the things that they said, it was just an outright lie. Like, oh yeah, you're going to be able to do this. Didn't even have the technology to do that. Didn't even have the baseline stuff ready to implement. Maybe it wasn't implemented. Maybe that's how they got it fixed. I don't know. I really don't know. So it's really messed up. It really is. And again, how they got away with this, I just don't know. How did they get away with this? This is absolutely ludicrous that they got away with this and managed to be like, oh yeah, no, it's fine. No, it's not fine. But their failure to launch the project is fair comeuppance for the most part, because you gotta remember, these people, they don't learn. They really don't learn. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm not too familiar with Stadia, but like, I don't know, from the list of the games I can see on either of them, like, basically I already have like my Xbox like games and past like titles that I can access for already like pretty cheap, and then I can also play like all my Steam games and like other PC games. So it's like, really, what new thing, like what would be the benefit of Amazon other than, I unless like somebody already has an Amazon account and doesn't really play games, and then that could be their foray into it. But I don't know.
Yeah, I
Like,
guess.
as somebody who already has existing consoles and platforms to play on, I'm not interested.
Yeah, this was the question when Google Stadia was announced: is who is this for? Who is the audience for this product? Because it sounds like they want to appeal to the people who play the core AAA games, but they want you to buy it on a virtual platform that you just stream over the internet. So that was really weird, because those people will likely have already have a console or are willing to buy a console because that's what they want to do, and to get the good performance. So, like I said, Amazon makes a little more sense. First of all, it's far less expensive in the fact that you do have a monthly subscription, but you don't have to buy the games on top of that. You do have those add-on packages. I haven't sat down and crunched the numbers and compared the cost, but it just seems like a better model on its face. Still the best value to me, though, if I was going to go that route, looks like Xbox Game Pass. By far. I mean, you just get tons and tons of games, and you have the option to play them on your machine or to play them on, to play them streaming. And so if I was going to go that route, that's the one I would look at.
Yep.
So that's my take on it. Definitely wish I could read more takes from the live chat. It seems to be working again, but unfortunately, with it being messed up, we missed a whole bunch of things that the chat said today. That's really unfortunate, because the interaction with the chat really makes this show what it is, in my opinion. And so, it's too bad that didn't work out. But we will wrap up the show there. Thank you, everybody, for the great conversation in the chat, for supporting this show. by listening live or after the fact. We really appreciate that. Don't forget to slam that like button before you leave if you haven't already. We really appreciate that. It tells YouTube that you appreciate this content. Of course, subscribe, hit the notification bell, leave comments below. All that YouTube stuff makes the algorithm really happy and makes us very happy. Special thank you to our Patreon supporters and our channel members who help to make this content possible. Our big damn heroes on Patreon, Robin, Shua82, Time Bean, Schoolaman, Lady Reaver, Dreco Dan, and our 2 anonymous supporters at that level. Our channel members, Mr. Pazernick, Jer Schultz, Game Notes, Night City Punk, Terror K, and Somnolence. Thank you so much for listening in, and hopefully the technical issues with the chat will be fixed by the time we do our next show on Saturday. We do this podcast live twice a week, Wednesdays and Saturdays, where you can interact with us and other listeners and be a part of the discussion. So if you're listening after the fact and you think, hey, I'd like to join the live show and make your voice heard, I would love to have you. The Augmented Reality Podcast is a presentation of the Triple S League. Check out our YouTube channel for game guides, reviews, comedy, news updates, and tons more quality gaming content. My name is Ash. On behalf of Cyb and Moontag, thank you all so much for listening. We'll talk to you again very soon.